You take it away.
I said I feel like I'm being interrogated by these bright lights here, but this is the ambiance that we're looking for.
So I came home from work the other day, and you were watching a movie that you picked out from my extensive collection.
Minority Report with Tom Cruise.
I remember watching this movie for the first time probably around 2009. I remember renting it from the Blockbuster up the street from my parents. And I was on break from college, and I don't know how I found out about this, but it is considered a Steven Spielberg masterpiece, as it says right there, from Ebert and Roper. Rest in peace, Roger Ebert.
Yeah.
So, again, this movie came out in 2002, and I want you to tell me what kind of drew you to picking this movie out. You thought it was a different movie when you picked it out.
So, in high school, we watched this movie with a totally different actor, but he gives off similar vibes to Tom Cruise, I guess. That movie was Gattaca. I thought, my brain thought when I picked this movie up for some reason that this was Gattaca, and I wanted to watch that again. So imagine my surprise at the beginning of the movie when someone's getting murdered, and I'm like, this is not the movie that I thought it was. But it has similar vibes of like, what's the word? Like kind
it's
of
a sci-fi vibe.
Yeah, sci-fi like future, like
dystopian future.
Yeah, dystopian future.
Guys, go out and close the door. We're doing a serious close it. Try to do anything with kids. You can't even be kid-free anymore on this movie review. We got our special guest reviewer here.
He's rolling around.
He's 6 months old.
Unless we let him be on camera, he's like rolling around, getting into mischief.
So Gattaca is 2 hours and 25 minutes. It came out in 2002. It was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards.
Gattaca or this movie, Minority Report?
Minority Report.
Yeah.
And it's right. It's my notes are right in front of me, and I still said Gattaca. Okay, so
parenting.
This movie it's loosely based on a novella by Philip K. Dick. That book is called The Minority Report, and it came out in 1965.
Yeah, short story, yeah.
So this movie is set in Washington, D.C. in the year 2054. It had a $102 million budget. It was massively successful. It went on to gross $358 million at the box office. It's considered one of Steven Spielberg's best films, and it is considered one of the best sci-fi films of all time.
Oh, wow.
It was originally dating back to 1992. Arnold Schwarzenegger had starred in another Philip K. Dick adaptation called Total Recall. And this was supposed to be a direct sequel to that, also starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as the character played by Tom Cruise.
Oh, no. This is much better with Tom
Cruise. The production company went bankrupt, and the screenplay bounced around. And it ended up being reworked into a standalone film around 1997. Screenplay was co-written by a guy named John Cohen. The script ended up reaching Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg, and they both really loved it, and they kind of had their oversight, and Tom Cruise is very involved in that as well. And they kind of had input into how the final script would be that we see today.
Oh, wow.
And then Spielberg met with a bunch of scientists at a hotel for like 54 hours or something like that.
54 hours?
Yeah, it was a long period of time. And they had this huge think tanks of scientists about what the year 2054 would look like without being too far out there. So they kind of wanted to be accurately predicting what the year 2054 would be like. And then they kind of created this very desaturated version of the color.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
It doesn't have a very rich color. It's very muted tones, and they thought that would kind of play into the bleakness of what the future could be like.
It makes you feel like really depressed and get a sense that the future is like a depressing place to be, and there's not a lot of hope in this future. That's how I feel.
So this movie has a lot of layers. It's kind of a murder mystery, sci-fi, drama, action, and suspense all rolled into one.
Oh, totally.
And it seems to have impacted you a lot more than it impacted me. I remember loving it, and obviously I own a copy of it. So it's been almost 2009. How long ago was that? It's been a long time.
Don't ask me
It's been a long time since I watched this movie, but I remember most of it. There's a lot of great actors in this film. I'm not going to go down a laundry list. Tom Cruise is obviously the main guy. But why don't you kind of, for the audience, kind of recap what this movie is about and what speaks to you about this movie the most?
Okay, I'll try. Well, so Tom Cruise used to be a police officer, and he used to have a family, but he's divorced, and you see him watch videos of his son, but you don't really know like what happened to his little son at the beginning of the movie. He works for this new thing. It's called pre-crime, and basically there's these 3 people. There's twin boys.
What do they call them?
They're called precogs. There's twin boys and then a girl, and they're like in this watery area, and people keep them in like this suspended state of animation where they're not really awake,
but their brains are hooked up to a computer.
They're kind of asleep, but not really. Yeah, their brains are hooked up to a computer, so they have this gift. They're called precogs, and they have this gift where they see murders like before they happen, and they see future murders. And so they're, constantly putting out these images somehow through their brainwaves. And then Tom Cruise and his team bust in and save these people from being murdered before it happens. And then they basically arrest
people that actually haven't even
committed the murder.
But they actually haven't committed the crime. They have potentially committed the crime.
Right. That's why it's called pre-crime.
And then their future prison isn't like a normal prison cell. They put this...
They call it a
immobilizer
halo.
On their head, and it puts them into this state of suspended animation.
Yeah, they call it a halo, and basically you're just like kind of not really a vegetable because
you're
can
in
get
a pod.
Out of it, but
you're a pod person.
You're a pod. You can only get out of it if someone takes you
out
of it. Basically, like it just is terrible. But presumably that's okay because these people are evil and they were gonna commit some heinous crime. Until you find out that there's like a problem with the whole system.
And it's not 100% foolproof.
It's not infallible like they thought it was because...
But they portray it to be because of it's become this bureaucracy, government bureaucracy. And there's money involved, and it's this ideal of creating a safer society by eliminating any crime before it happens. And there's like this one main guy that's kind of in charge of it. But there's a whole bunch of people that are in support of it, right? And that's kind of where the movie gets very controversial and philosophical.
Well, it turns out that Tom Cruise sees, he's watching it play out on the screen, this murder that's going to happen supposedly in the future.
He notices minute details are different and the different versions played out by each different
Well, he sees on the screen that it's him. He's the next person who's going to commit a murder.
Alert. It's
been out for a long time.
Old.
So then he's like, wait, and then the person who he's going to murder, he's never even met that person before. So he's like, why would I kill someone that I've never met? Like, it doesn't make sense. And so, and then there's this little ball that like falls down this little area to the imprints. It imprints the name of the murderer. So
and the victim.
Yeah. So he like stealthily takes the ball before this security guard friend of his can like see that it's his name that's printed on it. He grabs it and he's like, oh, why don't you go downstairs and get us some cake that they're having or whatever. Yeah. So his friend leaves. Yeah. So his friend leaves and he's like, oh, like crud, they're gonna, I'm trying to keep my language PG because the kids watch, but it's like, oh, I got to get out of here because I'm going to be wanted for this pre-crime soon. And, but basically as the story unfolds, you realize things weren't as black and white as everybody thought and that
there's a big morality play there.
Right. And then you start to wonder also, like, is it really ethical to keep these precog people like
enslaved to as serving like a purpose? Yes, but
they're just laying there like in this watery area, like kind of almost like drugged or like out of it. They're not free to live their lives, and then that basically ends up being like a big theme of the movie is like, is this ethical, right? To use these people, like, they're using their gifts for supposedly it was like a greater good of preventing murders, but also is it ethical to lock up these people
that actually haven't committed a crime?
They haven't done anything yet, right? So, and then there was also the theme of like choice, right? Because like at the point when he's about to maybe commit this murder, someone's there with him saying like, you still have a choice, you still have a choice. So that was
one of the precogs.
Yeah. So it's like, it just brings up an interesting theme of like, you know, there's times in our lives where like we feel like we have no choice, right? Like we feel like the decision's been made for us, or there's no other alternative. And people say that often, right? Like, I had to do it, I had no choice, you know. But really, I think it did.
So critics love this movie. It has an 89% Rotten Tomatoes score. Interestingly enough, audience members, 250,000 audience members submitted their score to Rotten Tomatoes, and their average is only 80% less.
Please.
And again, this is a 22-year-old movie. IMDb, 7.6 out of 10. 488 Google users have submitted their reviews for an average of 4.3 out of 5. And you know what? This movie is truly a sci-fi classic. I love most things that Philip K. Dick has been adapted. You know, Blade Runner, the whole 9 yards. Oh. I'm going to go 5 out of 5.
Wow, that's high praise.
It's rare.
I don't know. I reserve my 5.
It's a classic.
Okay, this is what I reserve my 5 out of 5 for.
It's considered a masterpiece, according to Ebert and Roper.
It's pretty good, but I'm going to save mine for Sound of Music.
Oh, gosh. You always go back to Sound of Music. Ever After is a B movie.
Sleepless in Seattle, while you were sleeping.
Those are 3 out of 5.
Ever After is
That's
amazing.
That's a 3 out of 5
Don't
tops.
listen to this.
But we're talking about
okay.
Minority Report. Give us the review.
But I'm for 0.5 out of 5.
4.5. That 0.5% is.
I'm sorry.
I
gotta reserve those ones for, you know, You've Got Mail.
It's a difference of taste, right?
I mean, it's a totally different genre, so
yes.
So I guess it's hard to say, but yeah.
This is long. This is running long.
Well, so for a sci-fi movie, I mean...
And it was a long movie, 2 hours and 25 minutes.
And really, there are a lot of themes and ideas that you can think about in this movie. And this movie haunted me, like, for a couple days.
You talked about it for days.
I went to bed thinking about it, and I woke up thinking about it. It bothered me a lot, mentally. In just a way of pondering, I wasn't traumatized, but I just pondered it a lot.
I'll let you you want to have the
it
final...
Got to me.
You want to what's the final word here?
4.5 out of 5.
And your final thoughts? Anything else?
I don't know. It was just you know, the theme of freedom and like at what point is it okay to take away someone's freedom, or at what point
for the sake of the public safety, right?
Yeah, like at what point are certain things okay to do, like for the greater good, right? And that's just, I don't know. I feel like a lot gets done in the name of that, and it's not necessarily ethical. So it was an interesting thing to ponder, you know. So
thanks for watching, folks.
And I wanted him to fall in love with the precog, but watch the movie, see if he does. I don't know. We'll keep that, you know, keep that as a surprise.
If you paid attention, most of all of her top 5 movies are all rom-coms. She's reading the rom-com into this serious
I know that
mystery.
They were running from the authorities and trying to keep him from dying, but I just needed, like, somewhere in there, I just needed some longing glances or some poetry, a couple passionate kisses or something.
That's not what this movie's about. Until next time. We'll see you then.